Welcome to War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast, coming to you every week from deep within the Outer Rim, far beyond the watchful ice of the Galactic Empire. Join your hosts, John Mark Tolley, Garrett K. Jones, and Brian Karasik, as they discuss the various facets of the saga's lore, characters, review the films, and discuss every tidbit of news coming out of Lucasfilm. And remember, this isn't just my Star Wars, this isn't just your Star Wars, this is our Star Wars.
And welcome to War of the Stars. My name, of course, is John Mark Tolley. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, with the mo-host. Anyway, it's Garrett K. Jones.
I was going to say, wouldn't I be the host with like the French toast? Ooh, French toast sounds really good.
It does. It does.
I don't know why, but it just
or the best roast.
I don't have a roast.
Oh.
Unless I'm roasting somebody with jokes. No.
No.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, man.
By the way, speaking of roast, what is it with what's his name? Feast of Fandoms, all those dad jokes that he keeps posting.
Who?
Or on Facebook. There's one guy that you keep commenting on all the dad jokes.
Is it Christopher Darrow?
Yes, that's it. Yes.
Yeah.
I
don't know.
A couple of.
I mean, he's posting them. He thinks they're funny. Some of them are. I can't help but comment on them. Like the one that you saw today about the whole man bat thing, and like I'm like,
yes.
Wait a minute, you're talking to Kirk Langstrom? Like seriously, like the geek in me, and like, no, that doesn't work. Wayne Bruce is the man bat. It's Kirk Langstrom.
And do you see my response?
I did.
Get out.
I told him, no.
Get out.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're not here to talk dad jokes yet.
No, we're not. Those will take care of themselves. No, we're we're going to be talking about the Force today.
The Force
this week. Last week, we talked. Our episode was entitled "May the Forks Be with You This Thanksgiving," but we're just getting rid of the forks and we're replacing it with just the Force because
that's the Force.
That is our topic, our lore for the week. And also, welcome to December.
I know.
I cannot believe it's December already.
Yeah, looking outside, I have been transported to Hoth. It is cold here, and snowy, and wind. Yeah, it's just mooey.
Why do they call it Hoth? It's not really warm. They should call it cold. Dad joke.
Anywho, well,
I couldn't help it.
Wow. It's gonna be one of those type of shows, ladies and gentlemen. One of those kind of shows.
Yeah.
So the Force is something. It's such an integral part of the Star Wars mythos. Like you don't have the Jedi, and you don't have the story of Star Wars without this mystical force called.
No, you don't. I mean, because like without the Force, the Jedi have no power. Without the Force, the Sith have no power. Without the Force, apparently you can't biologically create life on a planet out in the outer reaches of the galaxy during the time of the High Republic.
Evidently not.
We're looking at you, Acolyte.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But what I find very interesting is I wish I would have remembered because I planned to have a few little snippets as we went into with different quotes about the Force. The first time you hear about the Force is from Obi-Wan.
Yes.
And he terms it in the idea of it's a what is the quote that he uses?
He says, "The Force is what gives a Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together."
Right. So that is the first mention of the Force, of what the Force is and how it works. Later on, that gets expanded on, for better or for worse. But this idea of a energy force, of a something that's within all of us, but the Jedi have a special connection to that force.
Yes. And well, it's interesting because like talking about the Force, like it's like I'm looking through here on Wikipedia, and what's interesting is that there are both sentient organisms and species that have that experience with the Force, but there are also non-sentient organisms that have experienced it as well, or connect to it as well, because because the exogorths, the space worms that we see in Empire Strikes Back, apparently they called it the Road of All Moons, which is weird because you don't think giant space worm living in an asteroid being a sentient organism. And then there's a Dianoga called Omi that simply refers to it as it. So apparently the Force is a scary murder clown. But what I'm finding interesting is that there are hundreds of religions that venerate the Force in in their own way. You've got the Brotherhood of the Beatific Countenance, the Brotherhood of the Ninth Door, Church of the Force, the Dagoyan Order, the Dai Bendu, Disciples of the Wills, Force Priestesses, Guardians of the Wills, which is what Shirat Imwe is. And then you've got the Jedi Order, the Ones, Path of the Open Hand, the Sith, Sorcerers of Tund, the Wills, which I don't know how the Wills are different from like the Disciples of the Wills or the Guardians of the Wills. And then you've got the Zepho Sages.
Mm-hmm. And not to mention the did you mention the Witches of Dathomir?
I did not. It's not on this list that I'm looking at, but yes, they would also be users of the Force. And then you've got the Coven on Brendock from the Acolyte, who call it the Thread.
Yeah.
The less about that, the better.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm just kind of out of it.
Yeah, it kind of throws me off too. So, so the history of it, I think, is pretty fascinating. Have you ever looked into the history of the Force beyond just whatever's in canon?
Not really. Not anytime recently.
So, as a recorded concept, and this is, keep in mind, I'm reading off of Wikipedia. I don't know how many hands have touched this. The Force existed as a recorded concept in the galaxy for well over 25,000 years prior to the era of the Galactic Civil War. With disparate schools of study evolving in parallel on countless planets. The midichlorians, which connected the living Force to the cosmic Force and allowed a Force-sensitive individual to feel the will of the Force, originated on the wellspring of life. Many beings believed in differing myths about the origins of the Force, along with myths on the proper way to wield and interpret it. The Jedi Order once had similar stories of its own, but those were lost in a dark age. And then some believe the origins of the Force came from Mortis. So if you've ever watched the Children of Mortis arc in the Clone Wars, that's the planet that we're talking about.
Yeah. Yes. Great episode, by the way.
Oh, it's a terrific set of episodes.
Yes,
because we get great voice acting from Sam Witwer, as well as Ashley Eckstein, who was not present for voicing Ahsoka in those episodes, but was present for voicing the daughter, who is one of the entities of Mortis.
Yeah. That
really,
was really good episode. Yeah. I mean, do we pull the Band-Aid off right now and talk about the midichlorians?
We might as well. I mean,
I think there's a misconception.
Article that I just read.
I think there's a misconception about. There's this idea when it first came out that, oh, the Force is microscopic beings, but that's not what Qui-Gon says. He says that, and I got the quote pulled up right here. Anakin says, "Master, sir, I've been wondering, what are midichlorians?" Qui-Gon Jinn, midichlorians are microscopic life forms that reside within all living cells and communicate with the Force. We are symbiote with them. Without the midichlorians, life could not exist, and we would have no knowledge of the Force. They continually speak to you, telling you the will of the Force. When you quiet your mind, you will hear them speaking to you. So it seems to me like they're not the Force itself, but they have a super strong connection to the Force.
Yeah, almost like they're like a conduit for the Force.
Yeah.
So I mean, quite literally, every Force user who attunes to it basically is hearing voices, little tiny microscopic voices. So
yeah,
it's kind of funny that with that being said, like it takes the statement that Obi-Wan says in A New Hope when he's talking about the destruction of Alderaan to a very different meta level. Like when he says, it's as if
billions voices,
millions of
Well, he says billions.
Billions of voices being suddenly silenced, and I'm like, he's connected through the midichlorians to the other to the Force, which connects him to the other midichlorians on Alderaan as it's all being blown up. And so these microscopic organisms living inside these people are sensing this and sending out that psychic shockwave to any other Force user in the galaxy. And I'm like, oh, that's a completely new understanding of what happened there.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely. Wow. I never even thought about that. Wow. Whew.
I wasn't a big fan of the idea of the midichlorians, when I first watched episode 1, but I don't know. It's kind of, I mean, it's there. We have to, because it's been written by the creator, it has to be taken as canon.
Right.
They can't get rid of that unless Disney does another retcon. Which
don't put anything past them.
Oh, sorry.
Don't give them ideas.
I just spoke it. Who knows? Sorry, everybody. I just gave Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy another terrible idea. I'm sorry.
Shame.
You can send your letters of hatred to Leslie Headland at lucasfilm.com.
Anyway.
So what are your thoughts on the midichlorians? Like, how did you respond to that? Because you've got a few years on me, and I was thinking like a high schooler. You were thinking like a young college guy. I'm kind of curious, how you made that connection.
For the longest time, I think I was with a lot of other people where it was like, oh, this is stupid. They've taken something that was supposed to be mystical and gave it a real life analogy. But as time has gone by, I've kind of come to peace with it. It's just something that is what it is. It really doesn't bother me as much as it does some people. It just is kind of, that's not my Star Wars hill I'll die on. Let me put it that way. Yeah. It's just something that, it is what it is. I think having an actor the caliber anyway, sorry.
I think that makes sense because because I'm looking here at the article on Wikipedia, and it says it does talk about the Force being the mystical energy field that binds the galaxy together, but it also and that's more on the cosmic force side of things. But then it talks about the living force. It says the living force represented the energies of all life forms, and those energies were fed into the cosmic force, the wellspring from which it sprang, which bound the galaxy together and communicated the will of the force through midichlorians. So, as we mentioned, it was the midichlorians just simply serve as a messenger device.
Yeah.
Life form died, they would become one with the force by becoming a part of the cosmic force, which then provided power to the living force.
Okay.
So I that kind of makes more sense, and it's because it's not uncommon, especially in today's day and age, especially since the age of enlightenment and all that, where humanity has strived to understand the supernatural. We always are constantly trying to place it in human terms so that we could define it, we can understand it. You see that happening with stuff from the Bible. You see that happening with encounters with potential angels or whatever, and you're thinking, well, that can be explained by any number of things. You're always trying to look for that scientific explanation, and I actually had someone sit there and tell me, well, the Big Bang I'm like, well, what instituted the Big Bang? And they're like, well, it was a cosmic explosion. Yeah, but you can't get something from nothing. That's
right.
Ad nihilus is not a thing that actually happens. There's got to be something there that kickstarts the whole thing. And for me, I look back at Genesis chapter 1, and it talks about God speaking things into being. And it's like, well, what if that word, whatever that word was that God used, what if that was the Big Bang? What if his voice echoing through the cosmos was the explosion that kickstarted everything?
Yeah, definitely.
But again, that's me trying to put it into my own definition.
Right. I also think about when we're talking about the mystical force and the different. I look back at history and like the early 20th century and a lot of the mystics and the seances that were really big during that time. People trying to connect. So there's always been people trying to connect to the supernatural and special powers. So when we look at the force, how do we look at it? We've talked about as far as would you say that the Jedi worship the force? Or is it is the force a deity? Do they
don't the Jedi, the way the Jedi talk about it, they don't well, I would say Qui-Gon Jinn, we'll talk more about him next week. I would say Qui-Gon Jinn would be someone who deifies the force. The rest of the Jedi tend to personify it. Because especially like someone like Chirrut Imwe, while he's not a Jedi, he's a guardian of the will, and the way he says I am one with the force is with me. That repetition, that mantra, kind of talks about it as as almost treats it like an entity that is with him, which kind of makes sense if we look back at the whole midichlorian discussion from just a few moments ago. But it's kind of hard to say. I would say that without knowing too much more about it, organizations like the Church of the Force might deify it. Because
it almost seems like.
Go ahead.
Like if you take what Qui-Gon said about the Force and the midichlorians being like a
symbiote
symbiote life form, they seem to have a very symbiotic relationship with them, where they work in harmony with each other. The Koreans and the Jedi kind of working hand in hand, almost like an equal partnership in a way. But then you take the Sith, who view it as a tool that
Or
they
a
can
weapon.
use, or a weapon, and they almost would tend to view, I think, the midichlorians as this is a creature that I can hone, that I can train, that I can bend to my will. Whereas the Jedi are all about using the Force and with its will, whatever the will of the Force is. Whereas the Sith seem to have an opposite connection to it, where instead of the bending to its will, they want to bend it to the user's
Theirs.
will.
But and see, that's the thing is like I would hazard that the Sith don't even allow for the concept of midichlorians to even filter into their
Yeah.
worldview when it comes to the Force. Because I mean, if that was, I mean, yeah, you're probably right that they're trying to bend the midichlorians to their will, which creates a disruption. It's a brokenness within that relationship. But at the
Well,
same
they even
time,
talk about bending the Force to it, bending the Force to using the Force to bend the Force to it to the user as well.
yeah.
I think there's a few times where they talk about that.
Well, it's in the Sith code where they talk about that specifically. Do I have my copy here? It's back on my shelf. But yeah, the Sith code actually specifically talks about that. You know, about breaking chains and controlling the Force and through their whatever throwing their raw emotions into it. And there's nothing peaceful about it. There's nothing. There's nothing where it shows that circle, that connection. It's all about imposing control. And I think, I mean, while I'm sure that people like Palpatine or Darth Plagueis may have toyed with the idea of the midichlorians and had some recognition of what they were, they didn't care, because that's not what's important to them. For them, it's
Unless it
all
was
about
something that they could use for their own benefit, which we see with Palpatine, and some of his, we see in some of the machinations with the Mandalorian, with them trying to find the M count of beings in a process to start cloning Force users. So unless it's something that they can use, like, you're right, he probably didn't care. Which leads me to this question: Is there a dark side and a light side to the Force, or is it just the Force and it all depends on the user as to where? Because we all the time, the dark side of the Force, the light side of the Force. Is there just the Force? And it's all dependent on how the user wields that energy field.
I do think there comes from there is a philosophical application there, because if you go back to the speech that Palpatine gives to Anakin during that opera, he sits there and talks about influencing the midichlorians. He talks about the Jedi as having a dogmatic view of the Force, and he's not wrong in his description. The Jedi do have a tendency of these are the things that have been passed down. These are the traditions that we have. These are the ways that we are doing things. But they never take into account why those traditions exist. They don't take into account how they came about and what preempted them. It's just, this is what we've known for tens of thousands of years. This is how we're going to operate. Whereas many Sith, their philosophy is, let's see what we can do with this. Let's see how we can interpret this. There's a lot of adaptation and interpretation, and again, you see that in different sects of a similar religion. I mean, think about, again, jumping back on Christianity, think about how many organizations have come about just in the last 2,000 years. I mean, you had Jesus and his disciples who called themselves followers of the way, not to be confused with the way from Star Wars. And then after that, they started calling themselves the church. And then you started having the Gnostics showing up. And then you had a variety of other esoteric groups showing up around the same time in the first, second, and third centuries AD. Right. And then eventually you start having these councils popping up and these diets that are trying to solidify how things are structured and how beliefs are upheld. And then that's when you start having organizations. First, it's the Catholic Church. They come about. And then you have the Protestant Reformation, which, breaks into, you have your Lutherans, your Calvinists, your Baptists, your Anabaptists, your Methodists. Talk about being dogmatic, by the way. And then even from then, you have things branching off into some very weird circles. With other religious groups that stemmed in North America during the 1830s and 40s, and in South Korea during the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. So it's you get it. I mean, the same thing happens within any religious circle, and I think
it's interesting you mentioned the Calvinist, and of course the big Calvinist philosophy is that of predestination. And you kind of get that with the Force and the Jedi. Is fate predetermined, or can you change your destiny? You see that the Emperor's so keen that he knows exactly what's going to happen because it as he's foreseen.
Here's the thing. I think the way that the Emperor operates, that idea of things being foreseen, he may have foreseen it. He may have looked, he may have pulled a Doctor Strange and looked at all the permutations of how things could have gone. And this was the most likely outcome. Yeah. But he's also playing against people, and he's very good at manipulating people.
I will say this, in a couple of months, once I finish the third book, with the Aftermath series, is you get a little bit of that with Palpatine, of the Palpatine we saw in the sequel, the prequel trilogy, of the Palpatine who has plans on top of plans and contingency plans on top of contingency plans on top of contingency plans on top of contingency plans for every potential outcome of what could happen at the Battle of Endor. He wasn't just banking on him turning Luke. There were other contingency plans, which we'll get into that whenever I get into my review of the Aftermath series. I just started book 3, Empire's End. But
see, and this is where the topic of destiny and fate come into play. I'm sorry if things are gonna get a little heady here. The seminary student in me is coming out, but I've always taken a look at destiny and fate as they're sides of the same coin, but they're very different. I always looked at fate as, because it's derived from the same word as fatal. So fate is going to be your inevitable end. Everything dies. Everybody dies. That's your fate. You cannot escape that. Your destiny, however, I think is more tied with the things that you pursue, and it's tied to the legacy that you leave behind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, your destiny is going to be tied to those things that are important to you, those things that are intrinsic to you. And how you go about facing that destiny is wholly dependent on allowing what just happened. Hello?
Oh, sorry. Are you there?
Yeah, all of a sudden my screen just went like it blinked on me. What is going on? My camera it's still active. Hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
That is
I
so
can hear you.
bizarre.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Let me see what I
All
can do
right,
about
well.
this. My camera just decided to like, maybe I've become one with the Force. I hope not,
Whoa.
because that would mean I'm
Yeah, me
dead.
too. That will, yeah, that'll be bueno bad. Muy bad.
Okay, hold on. No. Well, I mean, at least now you can see something moving when I'm talking.
Yeah.
This is weird. What just happened? That's so bizarre. Anyway, as I was saying, like it's tied intrinsically to your the things that you're pursuing. That's where I think destiny is, and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, since you're having technical difficulties, should we start wrapping things up? Maybe.
I don't know. I think I've got a few more minutes left in me. I mean, I'm not completely destroyed. It's only completely destroyed when like the connection is completely lost and completely severed. Then we're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
At which point I'm going to have to find an internet service provider and beat the snot out of them. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, where else do we have that we can talk about? We've talked about it as basically as a religious concept, as a mystical concept. We talked about the midichlorians.
What's interesting is there are entities that have been explored. They're cosmic entities, like the Father, the Son, and the Daughter from Mortis.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is the Father and the Daughter are more alike, from what we see in canon. But what's interesting is the Son's like obviously the Father is the balance between the light and the dark.
Right.
The Daughter represents the light. The Son represents the dark. But what's interesting is how does that tie in with a creature like Abeloth? Because I mean, obviously Abeloth is potentially going to be the entity that we see being a primary antagonist in the second season of Ahsoka, because that's what Baylan Skoll was looking for. But like she's referred to as the bringer of chaos. She's the main antagonist in the Fate of the Jedi series. There's that word again, fate. And she is a powerful cosmic entity. So I'm really kind of curious as to how she's tied to that, because she is something altogether different from what we have encountered.
Yeah, definitely going to be interesting. Something, a force being almost that's pure darkness.
And it's something we're going to have to explore more in another lore episode, I think.
Definitely. And then you have, like, especially, this is something that I think they overdid in Legends, were beings or creatures that had no connection to the Force. You see it first with the Isla Miri, which created like a force, almost like a force bubble around themselves, around anything that touched them. But after a while, that became to be too much of a trope. It's like, oh, how can we hamper Luke? I know. Let's make some sort of being or some sort of thing that he can't sense, so he can't use his special powers.
Yeah.
Or, you saw Lemire, and then the using Vong. Which don't make me start on the using Vong.
Let's not get Brian started on that when he comes back.
Actually, that might be fun. Just rev him up a little bit.
You've been gone for a while. We need to stoke that fire.
Yeah. Palpatine wasn't that great of a villain. And go.
Well, I mean, he has mentioned on a number of occasions that Palpatine was the guy who hoisted himself on his own petard. It's like in 3 separate occasions, do not use your Force lightning. What does he use? He uses Force lightning. And that's the thing that gets him destroyed.
Yeah.
It's like he's got like seriously, Palpatine using Force lightning is the equivalent of Harry Potter using Expelliarmus. It's the one thing they do well. Force lightning, the Expelliarmus of the dark side of the Force. For those of you who are Harry Potter fans, you can write your angry letters at Kathleen Kennedy at lucasfilm.com.
Well, you've seen that whole bit about how Harry Potter's basically Star Wars with wands.
Yeah, it is. Well, I mean, to be fair, they both follow the hero's journey to a T. Which, if you go back and you look at stories like King Arthur, it's the same premise.
Mm-hmm.
Same premise.
Yeah. Same. Yeah, pretty much. All right.
Yeah. Yes. Anyway, so I think.
Anywho.
Yeah, I think we're about ready to wrap up.
I agree.
All right. Well, as I mentioned before, Brian will be back. We actually have an official return date for him. He will be back next week, joining us as we are discussing our next topic. And so if you want to connect with Brian before then, though, he is on facebook.com /the.sith.library, where he posts as Darth Corrosis. Is a carefully cultivated collection of Sith and dark side lore. So go ahead and check that out. They've got some pretty cool stuff there. It's been a while since they've made any posts, but that's partly because Brian has been he's been busy with trying to procure new living spaces and new technology in order to reconnect with us here on the War of the Stars podcast. So yeah.
Yes.
And then as for me, if you want to connect with me, you can go on to Instagram or X and find me at GKJ_publishing. I talk about my show The Right Way. I also am the co-host on the other Feast of Fandom show, Snackame, where we eat snacks and talk anime. We just celebrated our first anniversary this last month. And then I've got a new segment of episodes and videos on my YouTube channel called Finding Fiction, where I break down some of the lore, some of the themes, and some other threads that pop up in some of my favorite franchises. October's episode focused on the Mission Impossible films. Just this last Sunday, the video I did on the Halo franchise is on YouTube, and then this month you can get early access to it for $5 on Patreon. I'll pitch that later, but this month is a video essay on the Predator franchise.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. All right. As for us right here at War of the Stars, if you want to get a hold of us, a few ways you can do that. First of all, you can email us, warthestars1@gmail.com. All other social medias is at warthestars77. If you want to support the show, you can go to ko-fi.com. That is ko-fi.com/warthestars, or go to spreadshirt.com /shop/warthestars, or just go to spreadshirt.com and type in War of the Stars. That'll probably be a lot easier to find it that way. We are a proud member of the Feast of Fandoms family. Check out Feast of Fandoms here on YouTube. All the shows, you can see them going right down there. Again, if there is a nerd fandom out there, you will probably be able to find a show tailored to you. A veritable feast for fans. That will about do it for this week. Join us next week as we talk the man, the myth, the legend, Qui-Gon Jinn. Until next week, as always, remember, this is not just my Star Wars. This is not just your Star Wars. This is our Star Wars. May the Force be with you.